So my name is Stas. Today I'm going to talk to you around the SFCC place in the e-commerce landscape as itself. Let me introduce myself first of all, and you understand the motivation for this specific topic. So I became developer at Stas in 2011 and being just the middle developer. And at that point of time, that everything was very uncertain around me. So, for example, like I didn't know what OMS is, what is like theme, stuff like that. And it was very hard for me as a developer at that point of time to get those details, even though I was always curious around them. Every single time I was Googling something, I was receiving like ridiculous results. At the same point of time, I've got the impression that there is just lack information on the internet. At the moment, it's not that big a deal, and right now the problem is that amount of information around all these areas is so huge, you cannot understand anything just because there's so much information. So after I grew as a developer, I went to lead role right away, and then I went to the technical practice lead in System Commerce. And now I'm here, relocated to London in role of the principal solution architect and managing team of the solution architects over here. So I'm very kind of like I'm a highlight of vertical growth in this company on the career. So most of the times, the developer, everyone would be asking me when I'm working with developers on certain questions like, Stas, what's a mess? Stas, why do we need a team? What are those abbreviation means effectively? Why order is getting exported, for example, to MS, not to European stuff? And yeah, I'm going to bring you some of those answers today over this discussion and this presentation. And we are going to talk through multiple areas. It will be more or less like generic, but with projection on the SFCC and where SFCC does sit in all this landscape. So we're going to touch base on what is digital transformation. We are going to define with you the role of the system integrators and why they call it called system integrators. And then we are going to discuss the place of the Commerce Cloud in like Salesforce Commerce Cloud in e-commerce, walk you through into how do we design the integration in e-commerce, as well as we will focus more or less on the middleware in this integration landscape. And also we'll try to separate some of the concerns between the architects and developers. All right, first things first. I'm going to illustrate for you on what is the digital transformation of offline commerce business is. And to get more of the understanding how the offline business can be structured itself, let's review some of the models of the commerce models that are very popular, well, most common over here. So everyone knows what B2C is. Well, that's basically when business is selling to the end customer, so business to customer. That's one of the models which we are all working in it. Then there will be B2B, business to business. So by the way, like on the business to business, please put into the chat if you have ever worked with the B2B products, or have you ever converted Commerce Cloud B2C to B2B storefront? That will be very interesting to hear. Then one of the models is like B2B2C. That's basically when business is selling to the business and then enabling that business to sell to the customer. So basically it's like a marketplace, like Amazon. That would be like B2B2C model mainly. And right now, emerging thing called direct to business. That means when the vendor, brand itself, manufacturer would be selling directly, avoiding all the retailers in the journey. So let's say you need to build site for like one brand, and that brand will be shipping directly to the customer instead of like reselling through some of the retailers. And of course, today we are going to discuss mainly the B2C part. So here we go. Let's take a look how the B2C is structured in the offline, pretty much on place. So imagine you got the kiosk, you got the store, maybe some small store. Your classic normal user journey in that store, customer is coming, getting to the till, asking for some products. The merchant is going to supply him that products, charge him via cash or by card, and that's it. However, there is still possible to classify those items into more business-related terms. So I'd say no business can run without payment. So like you can accept cash, you can trade off with something that still will be a form of payment, and that's what it is. That's what your store needs to have. You've got the order processing as a thing. Let's say you got the order and you need to offline, and you need to ship it to somewhere, which leads us to other place of the warehouse and logistics. But the order processing will be ensuring that order is registered in some form. Maybe you wrote it on paper and give it to other person to do the rest of the job. So that person will go to the warehouse, pick, pack, and dispatch pretty much stuff, even without any automated system. There will be just like receipt. You need a till, which is represented by the official name of the point of sale, POS. Of course, you need at the end of the month or at the end of the day, you need to reconcile and ensure like your stock is matching with your stock is matching with your financials itself. So that's the core of the business components. At the same time, you've got some of the marketing components, like more like sales components. Someone gotta ensure that the products are placed in a very nice and right order on the shelf. Someone is need to take care of the pricing is attractive enough to the user, well, not to the to the customer who is walking into your store. You got your marketing to ensure that your store is visible to everyone who is passing by. You got some ads placed in some newspapers or on the billboards, whatever. And then, if you're more or less a mature business, you also would keep a record on the customers if you want to introduce to them some more loyalty. So you want to introduce the discounts for the customers who is buying the most out of you. So that's all of the elements of the B2C offline commerce itself, right? And quite honestly, it's not as much different to what it looks like when it comes to the digital bits. And that's where digital transformation is coming from, is basically stands for converting those processes into more electronic solution to the end business itself. So you've got, and just like walking through really quickly through the same components we have been discussing through before. So payment, like you all probably worked with some payment service providers. Maybe it was WorldPay, maybe it was CyberSource, maybe some other payment service providers. You got the order processing handled by the whole systems called the OMS, order management systems, which would be responsible for ensuring that order has been accepted. Everyone is being notified around that order. The stock is available for that order. And then once order is registered in the OMS system, it's getting transferred to the warehouse and logistics system. That's where you got your warehouse management and actually transfer management systems in some rare scenarios for more complicated solutions, but that's still a thing. So out of that, you've got also the point of sale as a POS terminal. So instead of just accepting cash or trading some or bartering some of the stuff, you are getting the POS terminal, so you can accept the actual electronic cash and doing as many payment methods as possible. Business process and accounting normally would be handled by the enterprise resource planning systems, as well as by the BI systems, business intelligence systems. That's all on the core elements. On the sales components, just like we've done with the offline part, like it's still getting grown to the merchandising would be handled via product information management systems, unless they're of course like they're directly managed in the Commerce Cloud. But ideally in this like best practice landscape, there should be a system responsible for that and should be separate. Marketing, you got the content management systems, you got the ML service providers to trigger the emails, tracking all of the stuff, and ensuring all of that is working perfectly and customer is kept engaged. As well as you getting the customer relationship system, which is CRM. Well, Salesforce is originally been the CRM, so that's why we are well aware of the customer relation management systems themselves. Their role is to keep track of all the customers, segment them by the loyalty groups, or maybe to perform some of the campaigns over them, to make calls to them, to ensure your business is engaging with clients as much as possible. That's their role. That just to summarize entire bit. So digital transformation is like basically going from the ledger, from the paper where you're registering all of the transactions, to some more complicated systems, to some automation of those business processes, to the whole grain integrated landscape of different systems. Like you may used to work with Excel instead of the piece of paper, but that doesn't change the fact that it's not automated. So digital transformation is automation of the business processes. So of course, you ask me like, so where is the e-commerce there? And apparently the e-commerce is coming like in its organic growth. There is still some businesses that would have the e-commerce as the main business model without having like the physical representation of the stores, but it's like rather uncommon, where the natural organic growth would be from the offline business, then digital transformation of this offline business, so they have more systems to handle more stores, more stuff, and they will decide as a business to get one more channel for sales, because you have like your point of sale at the till, and technically speaking, e-commerce is just another channel of sales. So it's not different. In fact, just talking about the channel of sales, e-commerce is enabler for more sales channel. You've got your e-commerce website, whatever we are building as a Commerce Cloud storefront based on the site genetics or SFRA. We've got the number of the digital marketplaces and social platforms enabled because we have this e-commerce website already. And just coming to the next topic of today's meetup, we are getting the mobile applications, which can be built natively by just using the APIs of the e-commerce in our case. So it was taking a look at the actual organization units of how the e-commerce business itself would operate. What's like just answering the question, what's required to get to the e-commerce from the business side? And to me, like, it's one of the most important things that I have learned over time, because I was always struggling to understand, why do you need so many people on the client side to get the one single answer about, like, okay, so can I deploy this library? Can I deploy the script? Can I use this API? And then it goes like through the maybe commerce department, then to some order processing unit, and so on. I won't be talking about the departments itself, because like business to business, it's structured completely differently. However, I'll be just using the term units, because units is something smaller and what we can get better understanding of. And most of the departments themselves would be consist of multiple units. So let's quickly walk through the units. So if you've got the IT unit, that's basically guys who is looking after all enterprise systems. Under enterprise systems, and the word that we use like is very common in the architecture, but also it indicates that you have enterprise and you have systems that are integrating together in enterprise, where e-commerce is becoming one of those systems as well. So normally e-commerce will come second. So like IT department would be taking care of that warehouse management system already. There will be already some integration with PSPs, because they're using POS terminals offline. There will be a number of other systems they will be maintaining and looking after. Also, you've got the security unit, which normally, like in the smaller organization, that can be merged. There can be like one person responsible for the security in IT, and that person will be asking weird questions and ensuring that everyone is logging this password and not using shared accounts. You've got the digital marketing unit, which is responsible for producing marketing campaigns. Most common representation of that as a kind of like separate department, and that's the ones who is effectively creating content slots, the campaigns, the promotions over the website. You've got the customer service unit. That's a very important bit that will introduce the customer engagement. They will be operating mainly with the CRM system and providing support to customers, which is logical. And normally it also will be separated as a separate department. Order processing unit, that's the ones who would be processing the order in the first place. Once order has left the e-commerce website, it goes into the order management system, getting processed all the statuses, all of the stuff there, and source it. So like OMS would be responsible for understanding from where do I pick this particular item, because you may have multiple warehouses. And then it will go to the required warehouse, and then it will be picked, packed, and dispatched. Then you've got the content management unit as thing. That's the guys who is basically working with the content assets and content pages, but also they will be working on the enriching product information. Means like at the base, like your product will have probably title, probably description, probably one image. Those guys would be taking care of ensuring that product does have some content around it. Like they will be filling in like very nice description. They may be putting some HTML blocks on the like for the PDP page. And of course, you've got the e-commerce department itself. Like e-commerce department may be represented as the separate department, and that's most common scenario. It just matter of how business has been structured in the first place. They will be operating through the e-commerce channels. They're coordinating all of these teams and using them for the purpose of e-commerce. So like those teams are not only dedicated to the e-commerce, they may be dealing with different stuff. E-commerce unit will ensure they are used in the right fashion, specifically for the e-commerce. So just to summarize, that's the way the e-commerce businesses are structured on the backside. That's something we don't really see, but it's very nice to understand. So you're getting more understanding who is more relevant to you when you're speaking to different folks. So you may ask, like, okay, so like Stas, you've described all of this. So where's the place for developers in that? Which would be very fair question. Technically speaking, the developers, as we all are, we are getting called system integrators. System integrators basically helping businesses into automating one specific element of the of that landscape. Because I mentioned like there is tons of different systems that are existing in enterprise. So if we are talking completely e-commerce, like that, we are delivering only e-commerce, and we will be responsible as a system integrator to deliver that specific part and ensure its integration to the relevant systems. So that's where we're going to talk about e-commerce integrations more. So yeah, since we are system integrators, we're supposed to integrate something, and normally there would be something really crazy or something really simple. You may be integrating the, I don't know, with OMS, even not knowing it, just by placing the order XML to the SFTP, and then whatever happens with that XML, you don't care, it will go somewhere. But it's really good to know that like there is some system that would be handling all of that. The diagram you currently see is called integration diagram, effectively, and its role to emphasize and show the role of each box in the system to ensure that and find out which integrations between systems are required. Each line in this landscape would be called the interface itself. Well, interface integration, because to integrate those two interfaces, you need to do some either workflow, which would be synchronous integration, or the asynchronous integration that will be just like live call. So this diagram is normally divided like into three logical areas. First one would be the upstream third-party integrations. Means it's some direct integrations from the current system, where the current system is Commerce Cloud. So that's what we're calling upstream third parties. So they're connected only to Commerce Cloud. There are also downstream enterprise integrations. That's OMS, CRM, ML service provider, and so on. That's something that is normally developed customly for every single client, while, for example, upstream third-party systems can be handled as a link cartridges most of the times. As I mentioned already, like there is some common integration scenarios I'd like to share just to separate out some of the types of integrations that we are normally performing. So we're getting the classification of the integration scenarios by the processing schedule. Most of the times it will be synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous, that would be simply live calls. It can be REST API, it can be called to GraphQL, that can be SOAP call, whatever it is. It's done in real time. However, like even with those real-time connections, it's simple. It's quite easy to confuse things, because sometimes you may also do this synchronous integration in a synchronous way. let's say you have the requirement for implementing the order export by performing the live call to the OMS system, right? So technically you're doing live call and you're thinking it's synchronous, but then in fact, you're doing that live call with help of the job. And in that case, it's not considered synchronous anymore. It's considered asynchronous pretty much. And as asynchronous, that's very, the most common scenario in the Commerce Cloud, that would be the batch feed, where you're effectively importing inventory, exporting customers, exporting orders, and so on. You got the message queue as a pattern. That's more architectural pattern for ensuring that the messages are processed in the asynchronous fashion. So that's basically making sure that everything you're doing even in synchronous manner will be done asynchronous the other way around. You're also getting the webhooks, and to be honest, there is tons more of the approaches how you can make things asynchronous. As well as you are getting the integrations by the basically interface language itself. So of course, we are all not strangers to the XMLs, to the JSONs. GraphQL probably is more rare at the moment, but it's coming to be a bigger thing. So I'd like to emphasize, and if you'd like to research, that's probably a good item for you to look into. SOAP, RPC, and tons of others. But of course, like most of the times, we will be working with the XML, JSON, and probably SOAP. So in this world, it's quite hard to understand at which stage we are integrating something to what, and sometimes in very enterprise businesses, we having use of the middleware. Middleware is something that would stay in between of the two systems to handle the integrations between them. Let's say Commerce Cloud would be doing the order export in asynchronous fashion, so placing the order into SFTP, but your OMS system does accept only live calls. So you've got a choice to integrate it through the direct integration by making that live call directly from the Commerce Cloud to OMS, or to ensure there is a system in place which would be dealing with that integration, which would translate, let's say, we have XML interface in the order export, and you've got the JSON interface or GraphQL interface on your OMS, which is quite hard to mix and match. And that's where the help of the middleware systems, you can hear the alternative names, or basically like the more of the subcomponents of the middleware, like the ESB, like message queue, that also can be play the role of this middleware who will translate it. So basically, it just translates one language to another, just like Google Translate effectively, but in more IT fashion itself. Please leave some notes in chat with which middlewares you already worked. You're probably aware of, as a Salesforce product, you're aware of the MuleSoft, maybe you work with the Dell Boomi, maybe some others. I'm very interested to know it, so if you don't mind, please put it in. All right. Let's discuss a few bits and trying to understand in all of this model where you have the SFCC on one hand, you have the business on other hand, you have SI on third hand. Even though you don't have in reality three hands, that's probably what you're going to get when you are SI. Because in a SI situation, we need to understand how do we deliver stuff. And that's where the definition of the developer and architect is coming into picture. And just to clear some concerns between those two roles, one of the good practices is just to getting more understanding and resolve this conflict of interests between the developers and architects, and why they are different and what they're doing, who is doing what, pretty much. I'm not going into like very deep details on the like RICE metrics and stuff like that, but at least on high level, I will try to explain it. So who is solution architect is? Like solution architects mainly responsible for consultancy to the business and consultancy to the developer. In terms of consultancy to the business, the SA would be understanding the business value of the change that business is requesting and suggesting the solution which would fit into that business value. So in this integration landscape, he will be suggesting the best way to integrate this commerce cloud. To developers, of course, it's more of the kind of the technical architecture design, understanding all the requirements, helping developers getting to the topic, and also translate that business value from the business language to more technical language. Also, one of the key tasks, which is like very hardly visible to developers, is the non-functional, working with non-functional requirements. Of course, probably one visible thing is that SAS does take care about the performance itself, but it's not only thing. There is like much wider list of the non-functional requirements that they're taking care of, like supportability, maintainability, well, probably not accessibility, usability, that's probably for other department, but still he would be ensuring and communicating that it needs to be accessible, it needs to be usable. As well, basically he's defining the service level objective as well. And he is one of the main business, non-functional requirements is the scalability. So sometimes SA may be asking developer for, why don't you introduce this config? And developer would answer, well, but who is going to configure it? And then SA will say, just do it. And then like there is like big conflict and misunderstanding between them, but at the same time, SA just have different perspective. He feels like businesses needs to configure it. So like those kind of conflicts needs to be avoided. And he's ensuring by doing that his business value. Where the developer role is, of course, basically working with the solution architects and build solution based on the technical design that has been created by that architect and integration design. Developers are probably the main sources for delivering that business value I was talking about previously, to ensure those guys are happy. And they are also consulting solution architects and business on some of the best practices in the technical execution of those business values, because not necessarily solution architect will be a very low level subject matter expert on the commerce cloud bits, but at the same time, for SA, it's hard sometimes to understand why do you need to write it down in like that specific fashion. And he may not catch some of the dump things during the code review, but it is fine. That's expected. My opinion is developers are future architects, most of them. To be honest, like most of the developers already like felt themselves architects when they're designing it without any help, right? When they're designing the solution for that, so they're feeling it, they can classify it and organize it, and that's absolutely the right feeling to have. And that's I think the growth motivation for you guys. If you're still developer, then maybe in like few years you may become that architect, and I will even welcome you in my team is something, but that's not the point. There is 3 types of the architects, depends on division. Like one is like the technical architects who is ensuring low level technical design itself. So those kind of architects, they are very into the Commerce Cloud platform. They know what they're doing. Then technical architect can change his focus just from being the subject matter expert in this platform and become a bit more wider solution architect, still with focus on the Commerce Cloud, but then with more visibility into all of the technical components of that system and trying to actually work with that business value. And then the last phase is where a solution architect can become enterprise architect, and that enterprise architect, he will be responsible for overseeing the business, but he will be least technical from these three, just because of he needs to have wider look at what's going on. So that's we are coming to the end of my presentation, and I'd like to summarize what we have discussed. So e-commerce, in short, e-commerce is just another channel of sales. System integrators are making e-commerce and merchant enterprise systems work together. So they're basically integrating those systems. That's why they're called system integrators. Middleware is here to make our lives easier instead of like doing the direct calls to particular systems. Middleware will help us and leave our format, our order XML format in the way it's built initially, so that will be proprietary format itself. Developers can become architect sooner or later, that's for sure. And please, please, please stay curious about your surroundings. Ask the questions, why, what that system is. That will help you become the like main very, very talented and very knowledgeable people in this uncertain e-commerce world. And thank you very much. And let's go into the questions.